if we do our work now, like if we make the investment now on the front end,
please,
like,
Lord,
as hard as it is sometimes, to really remember what our values are and to remember, what the long-term, this is long-term play, but the hope is that this will serve us in the future.
Right.
And so that is why we want to share it with you all. Welcome to This Whole Life, a podcast for all of us seeking sanity and sanctity and a place to find joy and meaning through the integration of faith and mental health. I'm Kenna, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm with my husband, Pat, a Catholic speaker, musician, and leader. We invite you to our kitchen table. Okay, not literally, but you're definitely invited into the conversations that we seem to keep having once the kids have scattered off to play and we're left doing the dishes. We're excited to share this podcast for educational purposes. It is not intended as therapy or as a substitute for mental health care. So let's get talking about this whole life.
Now, I'm not gonna stand here with my friends down and out.
It is This Whole Life, and it is great to be with you again today, good listener. How are you doing out there, and how are you doing right in front of me, my love?
I am good. Our people are tucked in, and we are enjoying some belated anniversary sparkling beverage.
We are.
And it is good as long as we can record this episode before you melt into a puddle of butter up in our non-air conditioned attic space on like maybe the hottest day of Minnesota summer in 2023. We're good.
Happy belated anniversary to you, my dear. Yeah,
yes,
it was great.
thank you.
14 years ago, we were
In Belize.
driving through. It's a funny story, actually, out there, listeners. Someday we will regale you with the tale of how we got from the airport in Belize City to our cabana in southern Belize, because it was a little harrowing and it was a little dicey.
It was a test. Like, are you going to be my knight in shining armor? Like this was the question.
30 hours
You
into
passed.
marriage. And I was like, well, protecting my bride. I guess this is the way it starts.
Because we shouldn't have taken that right turn.
We were never in physical danger at all, but it certainly felt like we were probably 3 or 4 times.
Yes. So this sparkling beverage was meant to be consumed days ago, but this is what it's like to have children and toddlers specifically, which is what this episode is actually about.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. But before we get to that fun little topic, a few little like housekeeping things. Okay. So housekeeping thing number 1, lots of gratitude for where this podcast has gone in the past, 9-10 months that we've been doing this thing. Yeah, which is so fun and so great. Specifically, though, gratitude for a few things. Gratitude number 1 for reaching our 25,000th download.
25,000th download.
It's like a milestone. I don't know.
It's
pretty great, right?
It's an even number.
Yeah.
Like it's got a lot of zeros behind it.
I'm glad to hear you're excited, as excited as I am. It's an even number.
It is a significant number. I am with you.
Kenna's grateful too out there. I promise she is. So number 1, thank you all for that. Thank you for you listening and adding to the number of downloads. It's great. It helps us when you share the podcast and get some great ideas, great resources, great prayers out into the world. So thank you for that.
Let's also just be real that like it's encouragement, right? Like as we sit up here in this hot attic,
right?
And we're like, is this valuable? It seems that someone's out there are like appreciating this and maybe coming back for more. So, yes, the number is significant, but it really is just encouragement because we really do offer this as ministry.
Right.
This is not monetized. And so we are here because we feel called and we hear that you all desire to know more. So
I remember seeing on social media, Ryan O'Hara, who was one of our guests on this podcast, about his experience of fostering and adoption and the mental health consequences and circumstances of that whole process. He has his own podcast called Better Preach, which is great. Totally recommend it. But on social media, he was talking about how valuable it is to really actually do ratings and reviews for podcasts. And he said, yes, like it is about sharing the podcast and it's about bumping up the podcast in the rankings so it's easier to find on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, whatever. But he said the most direct consequence is that it helps encourage the people creating the podcast who sometimes it's easy for us to feel like we're just shouting into the void, right? 'Cause like you and I are here in a room. If no one ever downloads this, we will never be able to offer our resources to anyone at all. So it's really encouraging just to know that folks are actually taking advantage of the stuff that we've been given to. So that's number one. Number two, speaking of ratings and reviews, we have officially reached our 100th 5-star perfect rating on Apple Podcasts.
Woo, how many 1-star ratings?
No, that's the thing. They're all 5-star.
Oh, okay.
We have
I thought you were like,
perfect
we're not going to
rating
count
right
the
now.
other 47.
Can I be honest for a second? I kind of am excited for the first not 5-star rating.
Yeah?
Because I feel like,
What are you going to do? How are you going to react?
I don't know. I feel
Are
like
you going to ask to take them out to coffee?
like
or
that'll
like
be when we will have arrived. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when someone who isn't
That's true.
immediately excited about
That's true.
the integration of
or
faith
like
and
a
mental
friend
health.
or family member of ours?
Correct. Yeah.
Like-
Oh, there are many now that are not, they don't know us
okay.
at all, and I don't
Okay.
know them. But I feel like that's going to be like some really honest person out there
Yeah.
is like, it was pretty good. I feel like that's going to be a really good milestone for us too. So anyway, thank you for all those who have rated us on any platform whatsoever. And especially for you person Hawk016, who were our most recent 5-star review and rating on Apple Podcasts. Good to see you.
Thanks, Hawk.
Appreciate that. And speaking of gratitude, we would love to express our gratitude for you out there, our good listeners, with a special giveaway that I think I hinted at maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago, something like that. But here's the deal. If you don't follow This Whole Life on Instagram at This Whole Life Podcast, you're going to want to start because, let me give you a little background. We have developed a little resource, a little booklet called a daily mental health journal. And it's a faith-based journal that a person can use every single day to check in with their body, with their emotions, with their relationships, to do a little bit of like daily awareness, daily attentiveness to what they are bringing to the world in their mental health and what they're experiencing.
I mean, it's really a few of our episodes rolled into one. You know, it's the emotions episode, it's the grounding episode. In the back, there are attune and empower sheets that help you walk through a particular dilemma. So there's a lot about boundaries in there and just the integration of the whole person. So yeah, we took a lot of the greatest hits, so to speak, and stuck them all in a spiral bound journal for ease of use, even though it may not be as aesthetically pleasing as other ways of binding. That was a huge discussion, you guys. Know that every detail was labored and pained over. So we are just super pumped. Yeah, we've shared it with other groups that we've worked with in our speaking and training. It's often available for sale when we're out speaking and training, but we are going to give it away to you, apparently. Pat has
That's right.
decided.
Yes. So what you need to do, all you need to do is follow us on Instagram and keep an eye out over the next few weeks for the official daily mental health journal giveaway. We're going to have a giveaway. We're going to give away, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 5 something daily mental health journals. And there'll be just a simple number of steps to qualify for the giveaway. So maybe we'll ask you to share a post about the podcast or tag someone that you know in the comments of the post, something like that. Some good way to get the word out about what the podcast is all about, and some great way to reward you for sharing the good news of Jesus Christ, and then secondarily, very much down the line of This Whole Life. So look forward to that. It's going to be great. I'm excited to send you some stuff. It'll be
Awesome.
good. Yeah,
Good deal. Good idea, babe.
Yep.
Well, what's going on with you? What's the high? What's the hard lately?
Oh, you know, just hanging out. No, just kidding. Yeah, so my high and hard are related to last week. So you and I, my bride, had the great opportunity to go to the Bronx in New York City last week and to do some work with a great organization that we've partnered up with called Seton Teaching Fellows. It's a ministry of Seton education partners. And it's a mission organization dedicated to teaching and catechesis and really kind of like mission work in schools. And they do great teaching, great support of kind of underprivileged schools in different cities around the country. So they're a great organization, super faith-filled. And you and I got to go do a couple days of training with the fellows about the integration of mental health and faith to prepare them for what could be a pretty intense year in terms of
Yeah, if anyone knows
emotional-
anything about education in 2023, you know that they, along with like the medical professionals out there,
Yeah.
are just, like a lot has come on their shoulders. And so the reality of needing to attend to their mental health,
Right.
it's paramount
Right.
in this time. So
Right.
anyway, sorry, I hijacked your
No,
high.
that's okay. And for people of faith to be able to understand their mental health in a way that makes sense and is kind of completed by their understanding of their role as disciples of Jesus too. So it was great. It was great for many reasons. One of them was just spending time with the Seton staff and leadership and the fellows themselves, just amazingly joyful, servant-hearted,
So cool.
faith-filled, just like fun people
Yeah.
to be around too.
Yeah.
Just like so joyful, so great. But then, because our anniversary was yesterday, as we record this, we decided to stick around the city for about a day and a half and to just do wonderful, joyful, date-related things for like 36 hours. It was
Sightseeing
great. Yeah.
and all the cliche New York City
Oh my
things.
goodness. Yes. Yeah. We went to
Eating so much food.
Oh, Little Italy in the Bronx. We went to Manhattan and ate Lox Bagels. We went to Central Park, the Met. It was your idea of all things to go to a Yankees game, which spoke to my heart in a pretty significant way.
Yes. This
It
girl
was
still got some
beautiful.
tricks up her sleeve.
What was your favorite thing that we did in New York City?
Favorite thing, probably going to the Met. It's just it's just not something we do very often, to go into a museum. And yeah, I don't know. I think I learn new things about you by the art that you're drawn to and by your interpretation of it. And it brings something different alive in us and between us. So yeah, what about you?
Yeah.
We hadn't talked about this.
I know. Tell me about it. Mine was, I think, kind of a tie. One of them was going to this church that we got kind of a hot tip about from one of the leadership at Seton Teaching Fellows, that he said basically like everyone goes to St. Pat's. St. Pat's is beautiful. You can't say anything bad about St. Pat's. But in my opinion, he said, St. Vincent Ferrer, this little church on the east side of Central Park in kind of midtown Manhattan, that is even more beautiful than St. Pat's Cathedral. And it's like less touristy, you know what I mean? So we looked it up. They had a 12:10 daily mass. So we went, and it was really beautiful. And it was just quiet. There were like 15 of us at daily mass. And like, sure, I really wish there would have been more people at daily mass, but very peaceful to just pray and look and take pictures. And
it definitely didn't. I mean, there wasn't
lovely.
anyone taking tours in the middle of mass.
Oh, so that was great. Yeah. And then the Yankees game was great. I've been to Yankee Stadium one time before. It was to go to mass with Pope Benedict when he came to the United States.
Oh my gosh, that's
in I think 2008. So
what a weird
it was
gathering.
a funny juxtaposition. Yeah.
I'm trying now, having been in Yankee Stadium, I'm just like trying to imagine going to mass there with the Holy Father.
I did have a little beer this time, which was significantly different than the first time I was there. But it was great. You were very generous and kind, and you were asking me lots of baseball questions.
Yeah.
And
Oh my
I got
goodness.
to regale you with all my wisdom, and you pretended like you were interested. It was very kind of you. It was
I'm
great.
like a mom of baseball players, and I got to understand this stuff. I have to sit through a lot of games. I might as well understand
true.
what the
That's true.
hey is going
Yeah.
on out there. Oh my goodness.
So my high was the New York trip for all the different reasons that we got to go. My hard is that we came home. And coming home is not the hard part. I made that sound like dramatic and terrible more than it just like as a joke. I really was looking forward to come home, and I missed our kids. But while we were gone, our kids were being cared for by amazingly joyful, positive, great friends and nannies and caretakers who were helping take care of our children while
Yes,
we were
'cause
gone.
It takes a whole army of them.
It does, yes. But apparently, no one is the same as mom and dad.
Yeah.
And what they did, I think we've talked about this, I think I would prefer it this way than the alternative. They kept all their emotional kind of struggle and emotional.
Their angst.
They kept all
Their
their
toddler angst.
They kept it all tied inside for 4 days while we were gone. And then we came home, and they were happy to unleash it upon us.
Yes. Amidst the hugs and the snuggles and
Yes.
the what have yous, but it was like Velcro. Like,
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So
Yes.
we're doing a little like emotional reclamation
Yes.
in the Malay house right now. Lots of quality time.
yes.
Lots of
like
reading
4
and
a.m. wake
snuggles.
ups. And
That's
like,
right.
Mom, I just need to be with you, even though it's 4 a.m. and you wanted to sleep for another
Our
hour and a
children
half.
telling us, 12 hours is not enough. I need
Yes.
16 hours of you today.
Yes.
So I'm going to wake up at 4:30 and we're going to start this party now. Yeah. It's just, it's difficult at times. So what about you? High and hard?
Yeah, I think my high and hard, two sides of the same coin. The hard is that we have 7 children at this moment, 12 years down to 3 years. And you think like, 9 years, 7 kids, like, like they're generally in the same place. Like you know what to expect. Like you were just there with the older ones in that stage. But it really does feel like a vast difference from top to bottom, like their needs right now. And like the way that I find myself thinking about their needs. And, with the older ones considering like, okay, is this a place where I need to give them space? Is this a place where I need to not ask so many questions? Is this a place where they're really trying to flex their autonomy muscles? And that's healthy and good and developmentally appropriate. And then with the littles of like, okay, like how can I step out of work and the moment I walk in the door, like be ready to just read and ride bikes and play in the backyard and, just make snacks on repeat. There's just a lot of needs and they're different. And I don't know why I thought that it would be different than it is, but it's hard and it's really challenging my mind. I told you the other day, Pat, that I find parenting really easy on the weekends because I've got so many more hours in the day to meet all of those needs. And the weekdays are limited. Like I'm at work during, the workday. And so that's hard. So I'm realizing that, and summer just seems to compound all of that with everyone being home all at once. The high, on the other hand, is the diversity of needs and is how fun it is to go from, the toddlers who really do just want so much physical affection and are pretty physically demanding and emotionally so as well. But, and just, want to read, want to play. But then with our older kids wanting to, they want to watch shows with us and they want to try bake something new or create a piece of art with us or, There is also this beauty in the diversity of where our kids are at right now, developmentally as well. So, high and hard is I'm really on. I'm on like 150%, and that is exhausting, and it's also like totally where I'm called to be. So the high and the hard, and thinking about those needs rolls us into
parenting of little people.
Yeah, of toddlers specifically, which, by the way, maybe I'll make a plug that like there's a lot of things in here as I'm looking at like our 10 hot tips that we're about to share that I think would be easily transferable to teenagers as well. Like
I literally was thinking that like an hour ago. That's really funny.
Like it needs to be modified for sure, right? You've got to do some work to think about how it needs to be fitted to that age. But
I don't even know that it needs to be modified that much. I mean, like the examples are different, but it really is just like, I think this will serve us well for another 20 years, frankly, these tips.
And you and I talk about this a lot, that like, we pray, we hope, we don't know yet because like I said, our oldest is only 12. But we, now having gone through or being in the midst of 7 toddlerhoods of 7 different unique souls and temperaments and characters, that if we do our work now, like if we make the investment now on the front end,
please,
like,
Lord,
as hard as it is sometimes, to really remember what our values are and to remember, what the long-term, this is long-term play. Because in the moment, man, it just feels so tempting to like, scrap the plan, like, and just
yes, you can watch the 4th movie of the day. That's fine.
And just grab the low-hanging fruit. But the hope is that this will serve us in the future. Right. And so that is why we want to share it with you all.
And we are happy to bring you 10 of our parenting of toddler tips in all humility, because I don't know if you have heard, person listening right now, that I sometimes struggle in parenting toddlers.
What?
I was talking
Get
to
out of
somebody
here
about the podcast, and I was telling them that I have to be sure that I don't take the low-hanging fruit of my hard being the parenting of toddlers. Because frankly, the way that I'm wired, I could do that every episode, right? And this person was very honest. They were saying like, you don't say that too much, but it's enough. You don't,
We
you
got
don't have
the
to say
point.
it anymore.
We got the point.
We get it. So I say that because please don't imagine that if you walked into our home on a typical like Thursday afternoon or evening, that you would walk into a quiet haven of peace and serenity.
No.
No, this is just a real house with real people that shout sometimes.
And are still trying to figure it out. Oh my gosh.
But are highly motivated to do it better every day. So
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's that real practical piece of, Pat, you have been really vulnerable and transparent with us, certainly with me in our marriage, about the impact that parenting willful toddlers has on your mental health, like what it does to your sense of alignment and congruence of your thoughts, your behaviors, your intentions, your emotions.
And even just my sense of worth. Like in the moments where I don't parent well, it's so easy to just like move into boom, shame.
Oh my gosh.
Shame town.
Yeah, shame
Population
spiral.
one,
Just fall down.
Just like I'm a terrible dad, I'm a terrible person, I'm a terrible Christian, whatever, Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, there's that piece of the mental health of like anecdotally, right? This very real example that we have lived. And then there's also the fact that what we experience when we parent toddlers and what our toddlers are going through is developing healthy, hopefully secure attachment. And when I say attachment, I don't so much mean attachment parenting. That is an offshoot of attachment theory, as it was developed by Bowlby and Ainsworth. But the idea of a secure base parent being that safe space, that haven, that toddlers come to, that children come to, that gets transferred to our peers as we become teenagers and adolescents, and then it transfers to our spouse or our community as we move into our vocations. But it really starts with the parent relationship. I mean, it begins before toddlerhood. It begins instantly in that parent-child relationship, but that the toddler years are the ones that really test it, because that baby is so sweet and so innocent. We can see its innocence. And in the toddler years, we're like, wait a minute, that gleam in your eye, it doesn't feel like you're so innocent anymore. So we are also coming at this through the psychotherapy lens of attachment theory. So we've got the practical as well as the theoretical in these 10 hot tips that really are born out of some of our mistakes and like face palming moments.
We've learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Yes. School of hard knocks in parenting. Yep. So whether you have toddlers of your own, if you have, 3 or 4 year old kids, whether you are maybe the aunt or uncle of toddlers and you just love your nieces and nephews and you want to be able to care for them as well as possible, if you are a priest who cares for little ones just among the people in your parish, if you want to have toddlers one day, if you have older children, and a lot of these principles still apply, here we go. 10 hot tips. You keep using the phrase for parenting of toddlers.
You kick us off, babe?
I would love to kick us off. Tip number 1, connection before correction with my spouse and with my children. Connection before correction. There was a moment a while ago where one of our toddlers was sitting on a chair and kind of almost like a stool that was kind of high up. And so if they fell off, there could be a minor, not major, but a minor injury that happened, right? So I had told this child, sweetie, don't sit up on that big tall stool. You need to go sit on one of the little chairs so that it's safer so you don't fall off. So I asked this child about 4 or 5 times to get off the big stool, go sit on the little kid chair. And then 30 seconds later, the big stool falls over. She falls, is not significantly injured, but like has an owie and is crying, right? And I had to fight every temptation in my fallen human body that wanted to say the magic words, I told you so, right? Oh. Or some iteration of that, right? Like, see, sweetie, that's what I was saying. Like any version of that.
It's like right there. It's right on the tip of my tongue
so easy,
when things like that happen. It's so true.
Because what I'm trying to tell them is I was right and you were wrong. You know what I mean? That is true. I was right about that situation, but that does not serve the moment that I'm in, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't help my child in this situation right now. So instead, I fought that deeply fallen urge in me, and I just scooped up our kid and I picked her up and I said, "Oh my gosh, that looks like it hurts. Where does it hurt?" Gave her a kiss on the owie.
So really going for the connection.
Going for the connection, right? Connection before correction, right? And it does. The tip isn't connection without correction, right? Because then after I calmed her down, we sat on the couch. We had kind of gotten to a place where I knew she wasn't really hurt. She knew she wasn't really hurt. We were together again on this. Then when I stood up again, I said, "Now, darling, we're going to sit in the little chair." Okay. Because I don't want you to be hurt again. I love you and I don't want to see you be hurt like this.
Well, and it's easier for her to receive that correction, when she knows how much you love her and how much you care about her. If you had held her in that place of upset and tried to give the correction, then like she couldn't have even heard you. Her nervous system would have been so dysregulated,
right.
She wouldn't have been able to hear you.
It's the old youth ministry adage that my good friend Gina taught me years ago. They will never care how much you know unless they know how much you care, right?
Yeah.
That, like, if they don't believe that you love them, that you care about them, no matter what they do, why in the world would they listen to your lectures about what to do with their life? You know what I mean? And that applies for every age group.
I was going to say,
with toddlers.
wow, teenagers right there, right now. Yes.
So connection before correction, number one.
Right, number one. All right, number two, empathy. And I say empathy, and I mean being able to respond with compassion to what the emotion, the desire that the toddler is presenting, and knowing that that's not the same thing as acquiescing to what they want. Their request may be unreasonable. I want that chocolate bar. It's 9:00 at night. You just brushed your teeth, and by the way, you had ice cream. This evening after
and they put
dinner.
you in bed an hour ago.
Yeah. And I found you rummaging in the freezer. But I know that chocolate bar looks so yummy, honey. We can talk about having that another time. But that feeling of being seen and being heard, that's so important. Again, when I think about attachment theory, one of the fundamental questions that a secure attachment solves is, am I worth it? Am I worth being listened to? Are my needs and wants, again, I'm not questioning how rational and reasonable your 3-year-old's needs and wants are, but
right.
This is a big picture question. And so empathy really allows us to communicate like, yes, you matter. And that is not the same thing for us as parents to have to give in to the whims of a 3-year-old. We do not want 3-year-olds running the world. That is not how this was designed.
Right.
It is our job to bring them up into reason and to help them become rational beings who make great choices. But yeah, that empathy.
So empathizing with their emotion and their experience, even if their behavior needs to be corrected, redirected, guided in a different direction, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's validation. Even when I come to you, Pat, I can think of last week when something had happened interpersonally with me and a friend, and I showed you a message, and I was like, this has really rubbed me the wrong way. And you were like, I absolutely can understand why this is upsetting to you. I don't see it in the same way that you do, but I can see how important it is to you. I can see how upsetting this is to you, that validation. It's important to us as adults. Like, we can imagine how that is to be such a small person and to feel so powerless in our world.
Right.
That empathy is power. It is powerful to be seen.
Right. Yep. I may not feel the way you do, but you're not crazy or wrong for feeling the way that you do. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I love that. Number 3, physically get down on their level. Emotionally, do not get down on their level. And it's pretty obvious what that means on the face of it, right? There's so much value and even research that folks have done about getting down at eye level with a toddler, with a young child, and being able to speak to them in a way that is not truly as equals, because as parents, we are always in charge. We always are.
Right. That power differential is always real. Yep.
But to show them that we are willing to be with them and like almost partners with them in a project, even one that's really difficult for them and maybe for us too. So getting down on their level, getting down on one knee, sitting on the floor with them. And it doesn't get any easier every year that goes by with toddlers, but still doing my best. but emotionally staying in an adult posture. So having the emotional regulation of an adult and not that of a toddler. So what would happen if you flip that on its head? Well, what would happen is you would end up looking like I have looked sometimes, which is towering over a 4-year-old and telling them, I told you 7 times to brush your teeth.
It is scary to me how fast I can go there, though.
Yeah.
Like, you say this and I'm like, well, yeah, of course. Totally. I've seen other people do it. It makes sense. I know how good it feels when I do it. But you're right. Like, it is so easy to go there if we're not intentional and thinking about this principle of being at their level physically, staying above them emotionally.
Because when we get down physically on their level, we're connecting with them on an emotional level, but even physically, just eye to eye. And at the same time, we are modeling for them the kind of emotional regulation that we want to help them mature in as they grow. So when I feel really angry because you, 4-year-old, are not doing the thing I've asked you to do 70 times, what am I going to do with that anger? That anger isn't bad by itself. Go back to our emotions episode. But what am I going to do with that anger? What I would like to do is I'd like to show you what someone does with their anger. And they can tell the person, you know what, I'm feeling really frustrated right now because I've been clear that we have to do this so we can get to mass on time or whatever the thing is, you know.
So like calling them up to your level emotionally. I mean, not expecting that they'll be there,
Correct.
But modeling that, like you said, witnessing that
Right.
in the hopes that they will move more toward you versus you coming down to them.
Correct. Yep.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense when you say it like that.
A little more every day. Yep.
Do you think I'll be better at it tomorrow? Time will tell.
Prayers.
We'll see.
Prayers. Yep.
All right. So number 4, I love this one. Prioritizing things that bring you joy with your toddler. So right now it is summer, particularly. So when I think toddlers, I know technically we have a newly minted 6-year-old. I think he is technically a toddler in developmental psychological terms, but he is moving on to kindergarten. So I think more of our preschoolers, who we have the twin 4-year-olds and then the 3-year-old. And right now it is summer and they are loving riding their bikes. And it's so fun to watch them master this new skill, which like I didn't do till I was like 6.
Brand new skill. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And was like so terrified and like had knee pads and elbow pads and like all sorts of things and wore like sweatsuit.
or your parents were just safe parents. That's
maybe. I don't know. As my kids today, it was so hot. I was like, just go in your underwear and a t-shirt. Like don't even look for shorts. Like it's not even worth it right now. But that brings me joy. And so today I told you, Pat, I texted you before I left work. I said, okay, here's my plan. I get off work at 4:00. I was working in the attic. I was like, I'm going to head down and spend 45 minutes until you get off of work, like riding bikes with them or like helping them ride their bikes. I'm just going to play with them and I'm just going to enjoy them because to be honest, dinner and bedtime is really flipping hard right now.
Yeah.
The sun is still out, like brothers are away at camp. Like it's just a weird time. And I know that it's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to fill the tank. I'm going to have a proactive strategy of let's do something that brings me joy and that this is going to sound really harsh, but like reminds me why I like you so much. Like I always love them.
Correct.
I would lay down my life for them. No questions.
Correct.
But do I always like them? Like that is
I'd
up
lay
for
down my
debate.
life for you. I just don't want to be in the same room with you right now. Yeah.
Sometimes. So find what brings you joy being with your toddler. For me in the winter, that is definitely snuggling under a big blanket and reading a book. And so most mornings and most evenings, I prioritize that, even 3 minutes. But it fills the tank and it's kind of like a quick date with your spouse, you know, that reconnection, like, oh yes, I see you and I remember why I love you and and all of that, you know, a heart emoji eyes thing. And so that is what we want to do. We want to encourage you to think about like, what is that for you that brings you joy?
Love that. Yep. And it takes intentionality too, which I appreciate a lot. Yep. Number 5, taking a curious posture with your little ones, which may involve asking questions instead of making assumptions. So you're already laughing because you know the story that I'm going to tell. So a little backdrop. Our children, God bless them, are notorious for two things. Number one, waking up before you and I ever could hope to. And number two, wreaking havoc upon the household before
While we are still
while
sleeping.
the cat is away. Exactly. There was a notorious Easter a few years ago where one of our children woke up on Easter Monday, the day after Easter, and we didn't know until 45 minutes later that this child had consumed every last piece of candy
Just
in their
plowed
basket.
through the basket.
And the backyard was strewn about as if with confetti, the wrappers of candy that had been eaten in about 20 minutes.
If you're wondering if the bunny brings less candy these days, the answer is yes. That was a hard learning for me.
So in the back of my mind, I've been conditioned by those situations, right? That when I come downstairs, I am ready to confront a problem.
Poised
that-
with assumption.
That is the beginning. The first thing I see in the morning when I open my eyes is something I need to correct a children and reprimand a child for, right? So one day, a few months ago, I was coming downstairs and all I heard coming down the stairs was the sound of paper crinkling, like wrappers, like paper. And I was like, you have got to be freaking kidding me. Just like stewing and furious and just thinking back to all the other days that we've come across, like eating candy and breaking things and whatever, right?
Getting into stuff they shouldn't.
Oh my gosh. So I'm trying to come down the stairs calmly, but it's not working. And I am prepared to like unleash the fury of God upon the children who have gotten into who knows what, right? And I come downstairs and there's still sounds of paper. And downstairs, I was prepared actually to start yelling before I even got downstairs, right?
That's the
I
best
wanted
strategy.
them to hear me coming, right? But instead I didn't, which was really important and valuable because I come downstairs and 4 of our children are awake and they are quietly, peacefully, lovingly folding paper airplanes
Okay, that is so sweet.
together
That's so cute.
as a joint effort. And they were just throwing paper airplanes harmlessly around the living room. And it was the cutest thing I've ever seen. And had I made the assumption and followed through with the assumption, I would have done a really maybe hurtful thing to our children
Yeah.
by yelling at them for no reason. And worse than that, assuming the worst of them, right? But instead, I had, again, Holy Spirit, 5-second moment of grace of like, well, let's just see what problem they're causing this time. Turned out no problem at all, right? Now, as humans, it's really second nature for us to get conditioned by past experiences. So if we've been burned by a person, by a spouse, by a teenager, by a toddler, it is very difficult and understandably difficult to imagine that they could ever be different, right? But our life, as people who need the mercy of God every day, is defined by people who need second chances, right? So it's really valuable for us as parents to be able to give our toddlers second chances, 8th chances, 27th chances. Maybe tomorrow will be different than it was today, right?
Well, and I love what you're bringing up too, Pat, around like how hurtful and harmful that would have been to communicate this message of daddy assumes the worst of you. I mean, that's kind of a generalization, but like, and so I think again about attachment theory, that one of the things that develops when we have a secure attachment with our children is the answer to the question, what does the world expect of me?
Mm-hmm.
What does the world think of me? And so when you have that curiosity posture versus the assumption, and like, I assume you're doing the bad, I assume you're doing the wrong, that curiosity posture, it gives room for, number one, the child to show up authentically, but number two, it answers that question of, I assume the best of you over and over again, even though for the last 72 days, you've led me to believe that you'll be up creating mischief before the rooster crows. So I love that. And I love how sound that is in creating strong, solid attachment.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So number 6 tip is take a breath and take a break. You mentioned earlier, Pat, in one of your tips about emotionally staying above our toddlers. And as adults, right, with fully cooked brains, our brains are fully developed around age 25, 26. We have the capacity to to attune to ourselves and to slow things down and take a break, take a breath, give ourselves the space we need so that our responses, our reactions, our choices are in alignment with our values. And we certainly, I mean, everyone listening here, I can absolutely assume that you value connection with your child. You value reflecting to them the love of God that you feel for them. We know that. And so taking that breath and taking that break gives us an opportunity to remember that, because otherwise it's too easy, right? You just talked about a stimulus response situation, Pat.
Right.
The stimulus, the crinkling paper, the response, I'm going to holler at you from up at the top of the steps. But when we take that breath and break, we remember like, oh, that's right. This is actually who I want to be. My human nature would say holler, but like what I'm actually desiring to do is to like give you the space to surprise me pleasantly, hopefully, and to show you that I assume the best of you and I give you the benefit of the doubt. So really training ourselves in those moments of dysregulation, training ourselves to notice, what is it for you? For me, it's my jaw. My jaw is my dead giveaway of like, I am in a dysregulated state. And the children know that worse than mom yelling is mom talking through clenched teeth. And I know worse than mom yelling is mom talking through clenched teeth. And so disciplining ourselves to take a breath and take a break. And sometimes that means that the mess continues for another 30 seconds. And it was a challenge for me to justify maybe walking away, nothing life-threatening, right? I'm not, if there is a knife being wielded by a toddler, like, please go get it.
Please take it from your child. Yes.
But you know, I walk in and I cannot believe that they have dumped out the bottle of olive oil or whatever the thing was the other day that they did. And when I'm aware that like my knee-jerk response is not one that I'm going to be proud of in 10 minutes, even stepping away and knowing that a bigger mess may be made in the long run, that is the greater value. The greater value isn't a smaller mess, less time spent on cleaning up the olive oil. Like, it really is about this relationship and what is it that I'm communicating to you about who you are and your dignity and your worth. So something as simple as that, and I know it's so cliche for a therapist to tell you to take a break and take a breath, but here I am. There you go. Punch that card.
Okay. Número 7. Number 7. Behavior demonstrates a need. So asking the question, okay, if my toddler is exhibiting a behavior that I don't like, or if it's just an objectively wrong or bad behavior, right? Hitting, biting, yelling, stuff like that. What is their behavior telling me? And again, this works for all ages, by the way. What is the behavior telling me? A couple of our children a few years ago went to occupational therapy, which I was surprised to learn is not about learning how to do your job again after you get injured, which is what I thought it was for about 38 years of my life. But they went to occupational therapy, which I learned was actually about bodily and emotional kind of whole person integration of helping people just live life in a more cohesive manner, right? And it was really fruitful, really beneficial for our kids. Maybe we'll do a whole other episode about that someday. But one of the greatest takeaways from OT was that if our child is doing something that's damaging, destructive, over the top, dysregulated, whatever, if they're yelling, if they're throwing things, if they're asking us for help with jobs that they know exactly how to do by themselves independently, what are those behaviors showing me? Well, if they're yelling, it may mean that their emotions are dysregulated and they don't know how to calm themselves. So in order to help their emotions settle down, a lot of times we have to help them along the path of helping their bodies settle down, letting their bodies lead the way so their emotions can calm down too. So we got great tips from our OT about giving them like difficult, good, like chewing type work with their mouth, right? Of drinking something thick, like applesauce through a straw, or chewing gum if they're old enough, or we keep gummy bears in the freezer so they can get really hard gummy bears in their mouth and just work on those for about 5 minutes, you know? And it is, as tempting as it may be to think of it this way, it is not just putting something in that loud mouth that's making noise so it stops making noise. That is
30
not the
seconds of
point.
reprieve.
No, it's about helping their body to settle down by doing hard work so their emotions can settle down
Because
too,
that behavior, the yelling, we assume was demonstrating a need. Like
Exactly.
Something's going on in here that I need. Okay, I
And I don't know how to communicate it, so I'm just going to get bigger and louder until you understand what I need, right? If one of our kids is throwing things at a sibling, usually, they may just need heavy work with their bodies. Maybe they have kind of agitation in their muscles and they don't know what to do with it, so they just start throwing Legos for no reason, right? So we have been known to have our children carry laundry baskets full of useless, just random things from room to room to do quote unquote important jobs for us, right?
Yes.
Of just like carrying stuff, pushing heavy things, pushing their siblings around in a laundry basket around the house, that kind of heavy work.
Well, it also reminds me, this just came to mind, that one of the things that we'll do too, if there's arguing and fighting, this is admittedly for older kids primarily that I will do this, but I will distract them with a totally new activity that they get to do together, but something to change the pace, change the course, and hopefully move them in a new direction.
Yep.
But I take that fighting as a need of like, we are bored and we are picking at each other. And so one night the kids had just driven me crazy. And so I sent two of them out to go run laps
That's right,
around the block. And our neighbors who were newer to town sweetly sent us a text message and thought our kids were running away from home, which I don't even know now that I think about it. Like, what does that say about our parenting? That they they were like, we know your kids are probably susceptible to wanting to run away from home. And so texted us and they were like, we see your kids running down the alley. Do you want us to go catch them?
Yep.
I think I saw them going toward Butler. And we were like, actually, that's just like a parenting strategy we have for them to go like vent and physically literally burn off some of that energy, that
Right.
pent up angst that they were expressing toward each other, because I hear that fighting as demonstrating this need that you've got a lot of
Right.
stuff
Yep.
built up in there.
The other day, I was home with all of our kids, and the 4-year-old twins were fighting with each other. They're very much frenemies. They love each other until they don't. So they were fighting with each other. And so I called one of them over and I said, hey, sweetie, can you help me with this? I don't know what it was. Like, can you help me put the peanut butter on the toast in the kitchen or something like that? Right. And our almost 8-year-old son goes, Daddy, you're really good at changing the subject with people. I was like, correct.
Dang.
I have learned how to change the subject
It only took him 8
very
years.
effectively. That's right. So behavior demonstrates a need. How can I look beyond the behavior and try to meet the need that is being expressed?
Awesome. Okay, number eight. Start with one thing. This is just a principle in general that I think can be used in all situations in life. What is that low-hanging fruit that will help you experience progress and success? So taking some time to consider, starting with one thing. What is the hardest thing about this season of parenting? And address that one thing. I can remember a moment not that long ago when dinner time was for sure the hardest thing about that season. And we ended up, you and I talked, and we ended up hiring mother's helpers during the dinner hour, certainly when you were working nights, when you were back in ministry,
right.
but even when there were both of us there.
Yeah.
I mean, when we had 3 really small people, when our youngest was born and the twins were still just 1, dinner it needed 7 adults for crying out loud.
Was?
Yes. It's okay. But being able to identify that and to feel like, okay, I've made some progress. I've addressed one thing. Otherwise, these seasons of difficult parenting and of overwhelm and exhaustion can just feel like we're just calling it in, and we're like, I'm just going to admit that I'm defeated, and I'm just going to hope to wake up in 7 years that something will be different.
I'll try again when you're 5.
Yeah. And I'm just going to sleep through this time. And it's like, hey, no, like we are called, we are promised the grace if we will cooperate with it. And what are the human resources that I can use and call upon? And I remember my OB telling me as I was probably at a postpartum appointment or pregnant with the next child or whatever. And she was just like, is this a Chinette season, Kenna? And I was like, what? And she's like, is this a time when you need to eat off of paper plates? And dishes don't stress me out that much. So that wasn't the thing that I needed, but I definitely needed to address the dinner hour. And so what is that in your life? Is it bedtime? Is it getting out of the door to go to daycare and preschool and school? Like, what is that? Sit down, take time to journal, talk about it with your spouse and brainstorm together. And don't be quick to discount anything. Just get all the ideas on the paper and pick one thing that you're willing to give some energy and time toward.
Love that. Just begin.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Every journey begins with a single step. I do not remember who said that, but it is like on 17 motivational posters in my high school. So there you go. There you go, guys.
Cool. We're almost done. Here we go. Number 9. And the one that I am most susceptible to, the one that I struggle with most, probably, although some of these are close. How can I say yes? That's number 9. How can I say yes? If you think of the image of one of those finger traps, that's a little, circle tube thing.
Oh, like the woven.
You put the little woven, the strip, right? You put your fingers on either side, both index fingers, right? You put them into the tube on either side. And the trick, of course, is that the more you try to pull straight out with your fingers, the tighter it grips your fingers. So the more you struggle, the more you try to control and dominate and just force your way out of it, the harder it's going to hold you in, right? Where instead, if you push in, it will relax its grip, and then you can slowly, carefully get your fingers out of there, right? That idea of a power struggle defines my relationship with my toddlers many days. And unfortunately, my default mode a lot of times is the mode of no, like they will ask something that is unnecessary, but it's also not unreasonable. And my default mode is that I am already at like a 9.5 out of 10 on the anxiety-o-meter. So I don't have the room or the margin to deal with one more request, one more thing, whatever it is. So my default mode is no, unless it's the most obvious yes in the world. And I'm working harder to flip that percentage, right? That my default mode is yes, even if I can't say yes to this exact thing that you are asking me in this moment, right? So a toddler comes to me, one of our kids says, Daddy, can I have some ice cream? And I will say, yes, on Sunday, on Lord's Day, you can have some ice cream or a treat, right? Daddy, I want to play with that toy that she's playing with. Absolutely you can, buddy. In 5 minutes, I'm going to set the timer and we will take turns. You can play with that toy, just not in this very moment right now. So how can I be creatively say yes in any opportunity that I'm able, instead of just shutting them down with a no every time they ask me probably a pretty typical toddler-related question? Yeah.
No, that's good. That's really good. I have worked hard to have that mentality of yes, and I'm working on actually meaning it. The children, as they get older, seem to see through my mind games. And so I'm really trying to work on I get where that desire is coming from. Yeah, I hear you.
And you are great at many parenting things, but the one that you are very, very good at is the saying yes, right? And you're very good at helping to remind me, okay, is it really a huge, major problem if they play out in the backyard for 10 minutes before bedtime tonight, just whatever the thing is. It's good to have that mindset in the same building as me to remind me what I'm called to. So thank you.
All right. So last hot tip. This is something that I learned early on in motherhood, and I am a champ at this now. And that is asking for help. That is, thinking about how and who might be willing to support you in this season. We are big fans of Mother's Helpers. So that is younger, children. So I'd say probably middle school age.
Yeah. 11 to 13,
not
like that.
not ready to independently babysit, especially our brood, not ready for that. And also interested and really good at maybe reading stories or playing Play-Doh or helping load the dishwasher. And having that additional set of hands is huge. We have a friend who is unbelievably generous and is an empty nester. And after we had, I think it was I don't even know, the twins, maybe the seventh child.
Pretty sure it was the twins.
Was it the twins? Came, because they were born in April, came, and it was the end of winter. And she said, I'm going to gather up every piece of winter gear in your house. And I'm going to take it to my house and I'm going to wash it and I'm going to bag it up and bring it to you. And then it'll be ready for next year. I didn't even know that was the thing that was really helpful. Like,
God bless you, Jean.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was amazing. And so, sometimes we are gifted with people who just show up like Jean did and who offer those things. And other times we have to ask. And the asking comes out of knowing like what would be helpful. I have friends who are like, it would drive me nuts to have a mother's helper in my house at dinner time. Like I'm already stressed out as it is. I don't need someone, feeling like I've got someone peeping in through the window, watching me at my worst moments of parenting.
Right.
Okay, cool. I can understand that. But what would your thing be? What resources are out there? What ways can you ask for help? Sometimes it's paid. Other times it's, a I scratch your back, you scratch mine, with friends and trading things. But what is that? And being able to believe that not only are you worthy of asking for it, but that your children are, and that your family is, and that this is your village. And it really does take a village to help raise these children, as it should. As it should. Parenting should not be an isolated event.
Right. So shout out to our village, first of all, to all the mothers, helpers, and babysitters and friends out there who have allowed us to help raise these children. And speaking of creative ideas like this, creative solutions, our oldest child currently takes art lessons from a great friend of ours who painted the image on the This Whole Life stickers that we give out and the hero image for our office and our website. And she is teaching our daughter art in exchange for some time as a mother's helper. So after their art lessons, our daughter stays at their house, plays with her kids, so that our good friend Sarah can just do things that she likes to do. I'm going to fold laundry in peace for about 45 minutes. I'm going to get some stuff cleaned up. I'm going to take care of some emails, whatever. It doesn't matter. But knowing that she's got a creative way to kind of get some help, it's really, really helpful. Yeah. So thanks for letting us share these 10 hot tips. We got to give a challenge by choice. So our challenge by choice for today is to pick one of these strategies to incorporate into your parenting. And Pat, as you have pointed out several times throughout this episode, this is not limited to toddlerhood. We don't feel like us experts in anything in parenting, but we certainly feel well seasoned when it comes to toddlers. I can't speak to the newborn infancy because it was a blur, but toddlerhood, I was more lucid at that point in the lives of our children. Speak for yourself.
So picking a strategy, whatever stage of life you're in, we're going to put just the bullet points of these 10 on the show notes. So you can go back and review these 10 hot tips. So picking one of those, starting with one thing and incorporating it into your parenting. And if you're really feeling like an overachiever today, let us know what you would add to this list.
Yeah.
You can, send that to us through an Instagram DM or through an email on the website, thiswholelifepodcast.com. But let us know, because we don't imagine this is the last time that we will talk about this. Sometimes we speak to groups also on this topic. And so would love to let this be a pool of wisdom, shared wisdom and strength there. So,
and frankly, I need to keep getting better. So I would love your advice too, please.
We've got several toddler years left as I think about this. Okay, if toddler years end at 6 years old, we've got 3 years left.
Yep.
So, send them our way, please.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Well, why don't we pray?
Yes.
And we can wrap this up and we can send you on your way, good friends, to hopefully be an even better parent tomorrow than you were today. And you were already really good today, even if there were a few slip-ups along the way. Oh, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we invite you into this moment, into our minds and our hearts, and into our families as well. We invite you into especially the moments where it's difficult to love and difficult to act in ways that are consistent with the call that you've given us to raising and molding these souls that you've entrusted to us. So help us to grow in all the virtues that are required to be great parents, to be faithful and loving and merciful, to be patient and generous and kind, to be connected to the truth, to be connected to you, and to walk with our children toward you day by day. We ask all this, Jesus, as always, in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Another episode in
Ready,
the books.
break.
Yeah.
Get out there and start raising saints.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Keep raising saints.
And let us know what has been helpful for you. Let us know what more you want to hear about. Reach out to us, as we said, on our website, thiswholelifepodcast.com, Instagram, This Whole Life Podcast, and on Facebook as well. We look forward to another episode with you and sharing in this whole life. God bless you all.
You're not alone, you're not alone.
This Whole Life is a production of the Martin Center for Integration. Visit us online at thiswholelifepodcast.com.
You're not alone, you're not alone.
Unique New York. Unique New York.
I did see a lot of unique things in New York, actually. Real unique. Mainly in the fashion.
Unique outfits.
I was really struck by the fashion.